Okay, so we're going to talk about flexibility. So first thing you need to know is the definition of flexibility. You need to make sure that you know it off by heart again. So flexibility is the capacity of a joint or muscle to move through its full range of motion. And those words in bold, full range of motion, are the words that you really need to remember. So how do I think about flexibility? Well, I think of someone doing a really high kick when I think of flexibility. So here is a lady doing a really high kick. And you can see that her hip bone is going through, showing that full range of motion. You couldn't get that leg much higher than that, could you? So it's when a muscle or a joint can move through its full range of motion. So just a reminder there for you. And I'm going to black it out and see if you can challenge yourself, see if you can pause this video, write it down, make sure you know that definition inside out before we move on. So you can pause now if you like. So, why do we need flexibility as dancers? So again, another moment, pause this, write down a list. When do you use flexibility in your performance or in class? Why do we need it? So here are some of the ideas that I came up with. We need flexibility to be able to perform some movements correctly, or to make movement look more aesthetically pleasing. So thinking about maybe an arabesque, getting that leg up really nice and high at the back might help with the kind of correct aesthetics of the movement. And so demonstrating stylistic features of the choreographer. So if you think about Merce Cunningham or Richard Alston, where the focus is on aesthetics, then that flexibility becomes really important in getting those lines right. Good posture and alignment, you need flexibility kind of in your hips, especially for good posture. If you've got tight hips, you're going to start stooping over. Preventing injury as well. We need nice, flexible, supple muscles to make sure we can perform all the movements that we need to do without pulling anything. But flexibility in stretching also releases muscular tension. And helps to release and wring out toxins from the muscles when we work on our flexibility and when we stretch. So how do we improve flexibility? Well, basically we improve our flexibility by stretching. We all know that, that's a given. But you're going to need to know about a couple of specific types of stretching. So if we start off looking at stretching in general, stretching lengthens the muscles in the direction of the muscle fibers. So we talked about these teeny tiny muscle fibers when we looked at strength, and with they're coming into play again for flexibility. But this time we don't want to tear them, we just want to pull them so they're nice and long in the direction that they grow in. So when stretching, we should feel a nice pleasant sensation inside the muscle. So when we breathe out during a stretch, it helps to relax the muscles even more and helps to elongate those muscles an extra bit. So here's just a little diagram of those muscle fibers. So you can see kind of the big muscle at the top, and then we can see how it's broken down, and the fibers are kind of loads and loads of fibers embedded within one muscle. So there are a few different types of stretching we need to know about. So we're going to start with dynamic stretching because that's what you start with in a dance class. And we do dynamic stretching every class to warm up, that you might not have noticed. So dynamic stretching is performed during a warm up. Dynamic stretches are held for a maximum of 5 seconds or 8 counts. And it's really important not to force, not to bounce in those stretches. Again, really thinking about breathing, about elongating. So we do dynamic stretching because it activates, it wakes the muscles up in a way. It increases the blood flow to them, which then increases the temperature of the muscles, which makes them more pliable, more elastic. If you think about like blue tack, if you've got a really cold bit of blue tack, it's really hard to kind of break up or to pull apart. But if you roll it around in your hand, if you get it warmer, then it gets more soft and it gets easier to kind of pull apart and more stringy. And muscles are exactly the same. So the reason we do dynamic stretching is to get those muscles warm, and by getting them warm, it will make them more pliable and more flexible and more elastic for our dance class. So we do sun salutations a lot for our dynamic stretches. So we move through these different stretches using our breath to help elongate those muscles, not holding anything for longer than 5 seconds or 8 counts. So the good things, so just a reminder about dynamic stretching, we are always going to perform dynamic stretches as part of our warm-up. Stretches should be held for 5 seconds and not forced. So this activates the muscles, increases the blood flow, and increases the temperature of the muscles. So I'm going to black this out, and I want you to write me down those 3 points. Tell me about dynamic stretching. When do we do it? How do we do it? What do we do? Why do we do it? So here we go. Here are our answers. So it's during a warm-up, holding for 5 seconds, increases the blood flow, increases the muscular temperature, increases the elasticity, and we would do a lovely sun salutation perhaps. So moving on, once you're warm and in a class, if you want to really improve your overall flexibility long term, you're going to want to start throwing in some static stretches as well. So remember, dynamic stretches are dynamic because we move through them. Static stretches we're going to hold for longer because static, as in, being still. So these stretches always have to be performed when the dancer is really, really warm, when those muscles are already soft and already pliable. If we're not warm when we do a static stretch, then we risk tearing the muscle rather than elongating it. So static stretches are long, sustained held stretches, and they often held for about 30 seconds. Again, using breath to encourage muscles to fully relax. So you might do them kind of towards the end of class when you're really, really warm. If you were, for example, watching someone else do their choreography while you were waiting to do yours, you might be sat in second, leaning forward and doing a stretch, a static stretch, just to keep working on your flexibility. So static stretches encourage your muscles to extend in the direction of the muscular fibres, increasing the length of those muscles when they're fully extended. So we're just really gently drawing out those muscle fibres and elongating them more and more. So examples of static stretches that we might do. So bending over, that's going to really stretch those hamstrings at the back of our legs in particular. It also stretches our back really nicely. This is one of my favourites. Get your bum against the wall, legs out to the side. That helps you to work towards your box splits, your second position, things like that. It works on your inner thigh muscles in particular. And obviously the splits as well. It's a static stretch. So they're all great stretches, static stretches, develop the flexibility in our legs. So we'll just have a little recap. So they're performed when you're already warm. They are held for at least 30 seconds. And they work by extending the muscle fibres really gently in the direction that they grow, increasing the length. So black out, see if you can write down those 3 points for me. So pause if you're still writing, if you're not, there we go. So hopefully you got all of those. So, final kind of stretching you need to be aware of is ballistic stretching. Ballistic stretching means bouncing in a stretch, and you should not ever do a ballistic stretch. Never recommend doing a ballistic stretch, because ballistic stretching can be really dangerous for 2 reasons. So firstly, there's no point doing ballistic stretching because it's so easy to tear and damage your muscles doing it. Because as you're bouncing, you start to lose control about how far you're stretching that muscle. And it can really easily cause you to tear the muscles by overstretching them and overworking them. Especially like old school jazz teachers always do ballistic stretches and warm-ups when your muscles aren't even pliable yet. That's going to be really bad for those muscles and really risk you tearing them. The other thing is the muscle, as you bounce, is contracting and is lengthening. So actually you're not really getting that much additional length, because as soon as you lengthen it, you're contracting it fully. And it's happening so quickly that your muscle just really isn't having that chance to really, stretch and elongate the direction muscle for back fibres. So never bounce in stretches, never perform ballistic stretching. So the next kind of stretching we're going to look at, so this is kind of our training principle. So with strength we have progressive overload. For flexibility we've got proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Now we can call it PNF, but when you introduce it you do need to use the full title. You do need to say proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. So what is PNF? Well, it starts with a fully contracted muscle and it moves through a joint's full range of motion to achieve a stretch. And you're probably saying, hold on, but you just said ballistic stretching is no good because it goes from contraction to extension. Well, ballistic stretching does that really quickly, but PNF does that really slowly and really thoroughly. And you'd only ever perform PNF when you were really, really warm. So it's a type of, it's a form of static stretching in a way, but we use resistance too. So PNF is effective because it takes the muscle through its full range of motion, from full contraction, easing it slowly through to full extension, which then helps to really push that extension and elongate those muscle fibres. So this could be done using pairs. So we've done PNF before where one of us lays on our back and the other partner pushes against your leg. So you push against your partner for 4 seconds and then you breathe out and relax as your partner presses your leg further down. So you could do that with a partner. You could even do that with a resistance band if you're stuck without any friends. And this is kind of what it looks like. Hopefully you remember what it feels like as well and how effective it is, because very often we can get our leg much further than we think we can initially do once we start to really kind of relax those muscles. So quick reminder of what PNF is. So we start with a fully contracted muscle and it moves to full extension. So PNF is effective because it takes the muscle through its full range of motion. So that links back to the definition of strength, doesn't it? And then this can be done using resistance in pairs. So if I was to talk about increasing the flexibility of my hamstrings so that I could perform higher kicks that were more aesthetically pleasing, I perform a PNF stretch with my partner, or I lie on my back, I resist against my partner with my right leg up in the air. I resist against my partner for 8 counts, and then I breathe out and I let my partner push my leg further towards my head for 8 counts, and I repeat that 3 times, just like that. So see if you can get those 3 points down for me. What can you remember of the PNF? When do you do it? Why does it work? What kind of stretch could you do that is a PNF stretch? Alrighty. So, to sum up, flexibility is the capacity of a joint or muscle to move through its full range of motion. That is our definition. Flexibility is increased by lengthening a muscle in the direction of the muscle fibres. So we do dynamic stretching at the start of class during a warm-up, maximum 5 seconds to make sure we're not tearing those muscles, and we're working to increase the muscular temperature with those dynamic stretches and to make the muscles softer and more pliable, more elastic. We can then move on to static stretches to really help improve our flexibility after a warm-up. And these are going to be held for at least 30 seconds to really allow those muscle fibres to draw out and to elongate. And we've also got PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, where the muscle is taken from full contraction to full extension in order to increase its range of motion. There we go. That is flexibility.